Today's lesson, we're going to continue where we finished off last class, where we were talking about ratios. So last time we had started talking about the different forms to use ratio language, especially the part-to-part, part-to-whole. That's right we're going to pick up today. Then we're going to do the understanding of the percents, our part-to-whole ratios. So we're going to start working on percents. I'll be honest with you guys, percents are some of my favorite math. They've come a long ways over the years, but back when I was in sales, one of the things I used to do every day was I would go and pick up the USA Today, and on the front page, they almost always had a percent problem, showing percents of something, so that you could see the types of comparisons that were being made. That's really what a percent is. Homework's super easy, just 2 pages. First period did really well today, so I had several people that actually finished their homework in class. We'll see how well you guys do. Hopefully you'll be the same. If we get through everything. So far you guys haven't done that yet. Okay, so making sense of ratios. In this activity, we're going to represent ratios in different ways. So the ratios that we did last time, we're now going to start looking at putting into different formats. So the Lantertown Middle School is adopting a new nickname. They've narrowed it down to 2 choices, the Tigers or the Lions. They, page 176, I believe it is. Yes. To choose a nickname, they did a school-wide survey by homerooms, and then they tallied the results. So here are the results of the surveys. So each homeroom analyzed the results of the survey and reported the results in a different way. For 6A, they said the votes for Tigers outnumbered the votes for Lions by a ratio of 240 to 160. Page 176. Homeroom 6B, there were 80 more votes for Tigers than Lions. 7A, the votes for Tigers outnumbered the votes for Lions by a ratio of 3 to 2. Homeroom 7B said 3 out of every 5 votes were for Tigers. Well, of course they're all correct because those are the results. We'll see. So here's your task. Excuse me, you have 2 tasks, all written in one. So you need to describe the meaning of each statement. In other words, what is it they're telling us? Then identify which describe ratios, and if so, whether the ratios are part-to-part or part-to-whole. So you need to identify the ratios, and then, if it is a ratio, tell me, is it part-to-part or part-to-whole? So this one, I'm going to let you guys talk as a group for about 7 minutes. So there's a lot to boil down here. But make sure you're covering all the parts of this. That's why there's only 1 question on here, because they basically did 3 different questions in 1 statement. So you're going to describe the meaning, tell me what each one means for 6A, 6B, 7A, 7B. Identify which ones are ratios, and then if they are a ratio, identify a part-to-part versus a part-to-whole. If you need the definitions, you can put back 1 page. We have the definitions for part-to-part, part-to-whole on the previous page. Okay? So go ahead and work together. First one. The first task, and we're going to break this down by homerooms. So we'll start with 6A. 6A, what was the meaning of the statement? Tigers outnumbered the Lions by a ratio of 240 to 160. What does it mean? We're not to that part yet. What does it mean? Austin?
6A?
6A.
So 6A is saying how many votes there were in total.
Okay, so total votes, and they gave us something else, right? Tigers were favored, right? So total votes for each favored the Tigers. Now, the second part. Was it a ratio?
No.
Wasn't?
Well, maybe.
Maybe? Who thinks that 6A gave a ratio? 2 people?
It did.
4? Now we're getting more raises.
It's because
You guys were supposed to have all had this written down already. So we're up to 9.
yeah, same. I got the second part. I didn't get the first part.
Okay. How many think this isn't the ratio? Raise your hand. Guys, they gave us a huge hint here.
Ratio.
That's what he said. It's a ratio. So, what was the ratio? 240 tigers to 160 lions. And finally, since we now know it was a ratio, what type of ratio was it? Part-to-part ratio. Okay, hopefully that helps everybody understand what you should have been doing the whole time. So 6B, what is it saying?
There were 80 votes.
6B tells what the difference between the two are.
Gave the difference between the two. Difference between the votes. Was it a ratio?
No.
How many think 6B was a ratio? Raise your hand. Nobody? Okay, raise your hand if you think 6B was not a ratio. Tita, you don't know which way it goes? So why didn't you have your hand raised? And Hannah? Are you just joining everybody, or you actually don't think it's a ratio?
I don't know. I don't think she knows either. Yeah.
This one is not a ratio, guys.
What does this have to do with math?
It has tons to do with math. This is what ratios are about.
It has numbers in it.
Again, there are relationships,
Anything that's numbers.
Jaden, and you're going to see today, it's actually a very strong relationship to English with ratios, because not only do I need the numbers, I need to know what it is. You must have your labels along with it.
Because you can't just be given 2 numbers without context.
No. Okay, 7A. What one is that one telling us?
That,
Raina? What about 7A?
what is it talking about?
What's it telling us? I mean, describe the meaning of the statement. What does it mean?
There are more votes for lions than tigers.
Tigers outnumbered lions, but there's more votes for lions?
That tiger.
You were supposed to have this written down.
Tigers
Okay,
outnumber
so all we know, do we know anything about total? No, but we know more votes for tigers. Is it a ratio?
Yes.
Raise your hand if you think it's a ratio. Liam, you don't think it's a ratio? Sure. Liam, ratio? Are you starting to pick it up yet? Okay, we'll go back. Well, take a look around you.
Please tell me you recorded it.
Yeah, it's recorded. It's already up too. So this one is a ratio. What's the ratio? It says 3 tigers to 2 lions. That would be my ratio. So what type of ratio is this one? Sophia?
Part to part.
You seem to be the one person in here that knows what ratio types are. So that's a part-to-part ratio.
She's just great.
Okay, what about for 7B? What is it telling us? Describe the meaning. Jet? Seven B. What's it telling us? The end?
It is orthogonal.
I didn't ask what type of ratio it was. I said, what's it telling us?
Telling us that out of 5 people like us, 3 people, I don't know, 5.
Okay. So what's the meaning on that?
And the whole.
Okay, you're answering the second and third part, but you're not giving me the meaning of it. What does the ratio mean? What do we learn from it? Austin?
You learned how many votes the total have been voted for Tigers.
Okay. So we know, again, there's more votes for Tigers out of the total. What does a ratio look like on this one? Sophia?
The ratio for 7B is.
But what does the ratio look like?
Oh, it's 3 to 5. 3 to 5.
3 what?
3 times.
To 5 what?
2 lions. Or 5 lions. What? 5 total. God.
To 5 total, which gets to the last part. So this is a part to whole ratio.
It took me a while to get there. I got it.
It did. So for the 3 of you that missed last class and anybody else that needs review, should be throwing stuff, Jaden. There's 2 major types of ratios we're looking at: part to part to whole. In a part to part, I'm comparing pieces of a ratio. If you go back 1 page, the definitions are all on that page. We actually highlighted them in class yesterday. The other option is part to whole, right? I'm looking at one of the pieces versus the total of what's being looked at. Okay? Whenever I write a ratio, it is very critical that I include what it is that is being compared. Otherwise, I just have numbers that don't mean anything. For ratios to mean something, I have to know what it is I'm comparing. So that's really the whole emphasis on last lesson. Okay, let's look at the next page. We're on 177. Let's consider the results reported by homeroom 7A. It said the votes for Tigers outnumbered the Lions by a ratio of 3 to 2. Actually, before we get in this, let's take out your highlighters and highlight over here real quick. So fractional form simply means writing the relationship in the form A over B. Just because a ratio looks like a fraction does not mean it represents a part to whole comparison. We can do ratios as a fraction even though they are part to part. So we're kind of changing some thinking here. The denominator doesn't always have to be the whole. It could be one of the parts.
Could like the whole number in a fraction be the whole?
Could be. But you could also do a whole to part ratio where the larger number is on top. So there are 2 other ways that you can express a part to part ratio. You can do it with a colon. Notice you'll see a number and a label, then the colon, and then another number and another label. Guys, quiet down. Everybody should still be highlighting. In fractional form, we have the number and label, number and label. Here's what I need you to take note on. Whatever comes first in the colon goes on top. That's my numerator. Whatever comes second goes on the bottom. This is my denominator. Another huge piece in ratios is order matters. Whatever is said first in English. You're not doing well today. I mean, aside from spinning around on your chair, you're throwing papers, you're talking, and you missed a whole lesson. That's fine. I'm not saying it was bad, but that means you should be listening even more now. It is. Fix it. So whatever comes first is my numerator. Whatever comes second is my denominator. Again, in ratios, order matters. You have to pay very strict attention to how it is written. We do a direct translation from English to math when we are writing ratios. And it's going to go the other way as well. If I've given you a ratio in math and I'm asking you to describe it, you need to describe it in the same order it was given to you in the ratio. Does everybody understand what I'm saying on this?
Yes.
This is actually critically important. It's one of the biggest things you're going to mess up in ratios. So let's look at a couple examples. We're going to look specifically at 7b, where they said 3 out of 5 votes were for tigers. What I want you to do, complete the part-to-part and part-to-whole ratios written in words. Then we're going to write each ratio with a colon and in fractional form. So we're doing it 2 ways. Colon, fractional form. This is critical. Label all quantities. You should be marking your text, William, especially since I am showing you exactly what the important parts are. You guys have got to get used to marking your text. This is one of the most critical pieces when it comes to ratios, because marking your text is going to help you understand the order so that you can write the ratio properly. If you don't write it in the correct order, your ratio is wrong. Can I say it in any other ways to help you guys understand the importance of making sure you get it in the correct order? Liam?
Always look at the question and write down what's important before doing the answer.
Absolutely. So what's important here? We need to write this ratio that they've given us right here in 3 different ways. We're finishing it in words. You're writing it with a colon, and you're writing it in fractional form. You're doing 2 types. You're doing a part-to-part ratio and a part-to-whole ratio. So you've got 12 blanks to fill in. I'll give you guys about 7 minutes. You can work together as a table if you need to, but you need to finish all 6 of these on both sets. Go ahead and go. So in words, even though they said it was 3 out of 5 votes were for the Tigers, that gives you the information you need for a part-to-part, doesn't it? Because if it was 5 total votes, 3 for the Tigers, how many were for the Lions? 2, which they actually gave it to you in the words, but you should have known we had 3 votes for the Tigers for every 2 for the Lions, right? So when I do it with a colon, I say 3 Tigers to 2 Lions. Remember, it is critical that I label all my ratios so I understand what is being compared. Even when I write it in fractional forms, I still include my label. 3 Tigers and 2 Lions. We can also go the other way. 2 votes for Lions for every 3 votes for the Tigers. Literally all I'm doing is writing it the other direction. 2 Lions to 3 Tigers. 2 Lions to 3 Tigers. When it changes to a part-to-whole, all that's changing is that second number. Now I'm looking at everybody that was done. So they gave us the first, which is exactly what they said. 3 out of 5 votes were for the Tigers. To put it with a colon, it means we had 3 votes for the Tigers to 5 total. Or as a fraction, 3 Tigers to 5 total. We can also know if 3 of the 5 were for the Tigers, how many were for the Lions? Because there were only 2 options. So I know 2 out of 5 votes were for the Lions. So I can now write that as 2 Lions to 5 total. Or 2 Lions over 5 total. Everybody good so far? Those of you that missed last class, is it starting to make sense to you? Liam, Jaden. Yes? Ezekiel? Okay, let's turn the page. Go to the next page. We're on 178. Finally, let's consider the results of the surveys reported by homeroom 6A. The votes for tigers outnumbered the votes for lions by a ratio of 240 to 160. So we're going to do the same thing we did on the last one, but now we're using these numbers. Okay? So we're going to complete the part-to-part and part-to-whole ratios written in words. Then we're going to write each ratio with a colon and in fractional form. So we have two parts. And we must label all quantities. Guys, ratios don't mean anything if I don't know what I'm comparing. So it's basically the same thing, but now we're using different numbers. I'm going to give you a big hint. Don't go back to the other page for totals. Use the numbers that they have given you here. Okay? So same thing, we'll give you guys about 7 minutes. Go ahead and fill out all 6 parts. You're doing both of these tables. If you finish those, you can also answer number 4. Okay, on this one, this should have been very easy to finish it in words. Guys, Liam, to finish it in words. They gave it to us. Here's why you mark the text. Again, Jaden. It's really hard to listen when you're talking. Again, your order matters. That's why when we've written it in English up here, you have to pay attention to the order it was given. They specifically tell us, tigers outnumbered lions, ratio 240 to 160. So the ratio goes in that order. So tigers, the first one, goes with 240. So there's 240 votes for tigers. Lions is second, so the second number is lions, 160. Once I have it in words, making it into a ratio is a no-brainer. It's literally whatever's first, 240 tigers. The only difference is I now add a colon, and I write the second one, 160 lions. Once I have that one, it's a no-brainer because I just turned it to a fraction. 240 tigers over 160 lions. Once I got the first one, the rest should be easy because I'm literally just filling in the blanks. So I now know it's 160 for them, for the lions, 240 for tigers, 160 lions to 240 tigers. Or, putting it in fraction form, 160 lions, 240 tigers. Now the second part is where most of you, if you had a problem with this, could have potentially gotten confused. So if you look at it in words first, hopefully it will help you. So how many votes were for the tigers? We've written it twice.
240.
240. 240 out of 400. I just add those numbers up. Votes were for the tigers. Now that I have it written in words, turning it into a ratio should be a no-brainer. It's literally just like it's written. So the 240 is tigers. The 400 is total. Or writing it in fractional form, 240 tigers, 400 total. So if 240 were for tigers, we know the 160. Did the total change? Nope. So we have 160 lions to 400 total. Or in fractional form, 160 lions and 400 total. Who is still struggling with writing these formats? Maverick, you're struggling with still?
No.
Huh? A little? So what's tripping you up? Guys, I'm sorry, Maverick. Okay, so again, one key with ratios is I'm doing a comparison of two numbers. So you're going to see in the homework, they're going to give you multiple numbers. You just have to pick the two that they've given you. Melinda? The 260 plus the 160 plus the 240. Because there was 240 for the Tigers, 160 for the Lions. They only had two choices, right? So that means if I add those together, I know what my total was. Does that make sense then?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am? Sure, that works. Thank you. Okay, so based on the survey, which mascot name did they prefer? Tigers in every single one. Tigers was the preferred name.
With the 2 to 3 ratio. Everything.
So because that was a word problem, we should have answered a full sentence on that one. Any questions on this ratio piece? Especially for those of you that missed a couple days. Because you have to do this on your homework. Okay, now we get into a special type of ratio. So everybody needs to have your highlighters again. Liam, probably put that around your neck, might be your best bet. I'll be honest, in most of math, percents is one of my single favorite things. Because percent is actually super simple. A percent is a special ratio, part to whole, where the whole is equal to 100 every single time. You guys have probably heard some of these. There's an 80% chance of rain tomorrow. Actually, that goes pretty much through the weekend. We got a big storm system coming through.
Yay.
Diego always gives 110%. That's normally like a sports analogy. So it's basically someone that's giving his all, right? Your battery is 50% charged. I'm sure those of you with phones have seen that before, right?
I've done.
Once it gets down into 10%, goes to low power mode, start having issues. Joe received a 90% on a 10-question quiz. I know there's a lot of you that wish your scores would have been that high.
I thought it were that high.
Not to give any names.
My scores were that high.
Okay.
My scores were that high.
Guys, I want to add a couple things in here. So I want you to add in percent means out of 100. The way that we show percent is with a percent sign. Ironically, if you actually look at the percent sign, it gives you the definition. Because look what the percent sign is. It is a 1 with 2 zeros. It just puts the 1 between the 2 zeros. So if you look at the percent sign, it's literally giving you the definition.
I know that's the percent sign. It means out of 100.
Yes.
It does.
It gives you the definition. The percent sign has the 100 right there. So, if we are doing percent, you're going to see a lot of these grids. They like the 100 grids. They normally are going to say the shaded part. Here's a quick question. Does it really matter if I shade this way or this way?
No.
No? Could I shade this way?
It's still.
Could I shade this way? Yes. It really doesn't matter. Now, my personal preference, I like the first method. I personally go this way. But whatever you feel most comfortable with is fine. The bottom line is, if they give it to you, you need to just count it the way it is. So what we're going to do, you're going to write a fraction and a percent to represent the shaded part of each grid. Each hundredths grid represents a whole, meaning there is 100 inside of the grid. Now, one thing I also want you to get used to is simplifying the fractions. So if you're writing a percent, you just write the number. But when you turn it to a fraction, you are then going to simplify. Okay? To simplify, we go back to our 4 key numbers, which are?
2, 4, 5, 7, 7.
So close.
2, 3, 5, and 7.
2, 3, 5, 7. For those of you that still have not memorized your 4 key numbers, write them down again. Here's one of the keys. Percent means out of 100. So I'm not going to use 3s or 7s for simplifying the fraction pieces. Because my denominator is 100, I really only have to focus on the 2s and 5s.
Yep.
Okay? So you got 4 of them to do. Write the percent. So you write the percent using a percent sign, convert it to a fraction, and simplify. I'll give you guys 5 minutes. Go. Good. Help us out, Maverick. What's the first one?
First one, it's 45% out of 100%. I'm just going to be 45 minutes.
Okay. Is that your final answer? So you ignored the whole part about simplifying. You don't remember when I said make sure you simplify your answers? And we actually rewrote our 4 key numbers. I said make sure you're checking these numbers to simplify. 45 and 100. Can I divide them both by 2? No. 3? 5. So I can divide them both by 5, which would give me 9/20. That should have been my final answer. Okay. What about number 2? Brandon? Okay. 11% and 11 hundredths. Can I simplify that? Nope, so I'm done. Number 3. Liam?
Is it 70% or 7?
Good, 70%. And I like you gave me the final answer. Make sure you've shown your work, though. I need to see where you start. I can divide both those by 10. Gives me 7 out of 10. If you did 2 and then 5, that's fine. Or 5 and then 2, that's also fine. But if you can see, they both end in zeros. I know I can divide by 10. You can do it in one step. 2, 3, 5, and 7 will get you there. But if you see bigger numbers, you can use them. What about number 4? Melinda? 100%, which came out to what?
I got 2.
Wait, what?
What?
That's 50. Wait, it's
100 and 100, I can divide both those by 100. Gives me 1 over 1 or 1. Remember, you have to do both. Everybody good? So, bottom line, guys, percents actually are super easy because they're always out of 100. So when you're working with percents, that should actually make you feel good because that's easy work. Okay, there are several ways to compare 2 quantities and write ratios. We can do it with a colon, part to part, part to whole. You can do it as a fraction, part over whole. We can also use words. Okay, I'll be honest, I don't like this one, so I'm actually going to walk you guys through this one because they're just going to throw variables in here. So consider the statement. There are N 6th grade band members and T total 6th graders. Write a part to whole ratio using colon notation.
Well, it would be
So, one thing we've covered but not too in depth so far is the use of variables. What does a variable mean? Brandon? Is that what? Actually, the way I like to think of a variable is it's a placeholder for a number that I just don't know. So I know there's a number there. I don't know what the number is. Until someone tells me what the number is, I just use that letter to hold its place.
You've done this before.
Yes.
Well, it's like a present.
So, because I'm comparing 6th grade to total, a part to whole is very easy. I have N 6th grade band to T total 6th grade. No. I've got it.
Yeah, the only reason we're behind is we'll have that.
Guys, now here's where this one can get a little bit confusing. They want a part to part ratio, but they gave me N band, I forgot the band on that because I was looking at the phone, and T total. Do I have a part?
No.
No. Can I make a part?
Yes.
Yes. So I would have N 6th grade band to T minus N, because I take the total, I subtract the band members, and I would get the 6th grade not band. I don't know why there's so much conversation going on. Jaden, this has been a really terrible day for you. I mean, almost to the point I'm tempted to write your mom and say, you need to listen to today's video and see why he's struggling so much in math. It is terribly bad. So guys, here's the big key. They didn't give me numbers. I can still use the variables they gave me to represent those numbers. I still know it's N 6th grade band members. If I know the total and I subtract that number, that's going to tell me how many are not in band. Because I always have to have two numbers to compare. So a survey of 6th graders with pets revealed that C prefer cats, D prefer dogs. So how can I compare these using a part-to-part? That's actually the easy one. I have C number that like cats to some number D that like dogs. Could I do it the other way? D dogs to C cats, would that work? Yes, but given how they've written it, again, when I do my translation, I go from English to math, I should do it in the order they were written to me. But I could do either one of those. Now, how do I make that a part to whole, though?
You could do C, and then the two dots, and then like D plus C.
Good. So C plus D for cats and dogs. Or I could have done D dogs to C plus D cats and dogs. Didn't write any of it down? So guys, that one was a little more complex. That's why I wanted to walk through it with you. But do you understand where these numbers are coming from? Again, a ratio is just a comparison of two numbers by division. So once I've written it as a ratio, doing the division, writing as a fraction is super easy to do. So we're either separating it with a colon or with a fraction bar. Okay, let's go to our homework. Here's our first page, 181. First part, pretty simple. Describe two ratios in the real world. Write about at least one part to whole and one part to part. So how many ratios should I have? Two. I'll give you a very easy one. Boys and girls. Super easy comparison. Look around you.
The ones that we did, like right here.
Is that real world?
It's real world in the book.
Is it real world? Okay. So practice. Here's where I get a little more complex because they've given you a lot of numbers. If you will follow me and mark your text, I'm about to make this way easier for you. So the Lewis brothers joined a club. They provide free movies on a list they pre-select. So they get the first 10 movies from their list by choosing their favorite type. John David puts 5 sports movies. Parker chooses 3 sci-fi. And Stephen adds 2 comedies. Write the ratio in colon and fractional form. So I have to write it in 2 ways to express each relationship. Then they've given me 6 different relationships. I just highlighted all the numbers for you. You should be able to use those. So number 2, identify which of the ratios in question 1 are part to part, which are part to whole. So you just use the letters. Say part to whole, these are the ones. Here's where you need to add a little bit to your directions. So everybody should be on page 182 right now. Write the percent that represents the shaded part of each grid. Each hundredth represents a whole, but I also want you to write the percent and fraction, and then simplify the fraction. Does everybody understand the addition on the directions? Did you write it into your directions to make sure that you do it so you get full credit?
Yes.
Because if you try to hand me your homework on Monday and you didn't do the fractions, I'm not grading it. It will go in as incomplete. Everybody clear?
Yes.
Okay, you guys have about 3 minutes. Honestly, this is easy enough. Some of you can finish this in 3 minutes. Actually, I think a couple of you have already finished this homework. Okay.